Hey folks, it's time for the quote of the day, and today's quote is going to come to you from an author that I have quoted 2 or 3 times before, but today is his birthday, and I want to take the chance to honor him. Now, some folks don't like him, and I'm going to be very upfront and honest about that. Some folks really don't like him, but he is nonetheless one of the most influential science fiction writers of all time. Today I'm quoting, for his birthday, Robert A. Heinlein, or some people say Heinlein, but I think it's Heinlein. Now, that being said, uh, like I said, some people don't like him, and we'll get into that in a moment. But you have to remember one thing about him, and that is this man is one of the most influential writers of all time. Now, I don't mean science fiction writers. I mean literally one of the most influential writers of all time. This man coined terms and put forward ideas that literally helped build the reality that we have today. He was actually one of the first people to ever put anything that closely resembles a fucking cell phone in one of his books. And lo and behold, here we have. Now, what he called this was speculative fiction and hard science fiction. So he would really dive into the reality of what we were moving towards technologically and so on and so forth, and then he would look at what the effect that would have. And it really is absolutely amazing how intelligent he was and how much foresight, I should say, he had about what was to come in our future, including what I talk about in the quote of the day today. But like I said, some people don't like him, and a lot of people look at some of his writings, especially his popular writings, Stranger in a Strange Land, and especially Starship Troopers, and I believe they don't really understand it. Now, for those of you that don't know this, last year, your boy spent some time in jail, about 2.5 weeks in jail. And in that time, they have a library, and I went and I got Starship Troopers. I had read only pieces of it before, but I was a big fan of the movie, not realizing that the movie is nothing like the book. So I sit there and I'm reading the book and I'm waiting for, the big battle scenes and all this stuff, and there's a little bit of that in there, but it's nothing like the movie. And what I found was, what the reason why people don't like him is that they look at books like that he wrote, that talk about things like space marines and that like kind of dogmatic way of being, because again, Heinlein saw things in a realistic sense. I mean, it was science fiction, but this was like the future to a certain degree in his mind. And a lot of that also came from the fact that he was in the military and he loved the military. So people look at that and they look at it as almost like propaganda. They think that he was a fascist or something like that, that was, pushing ideology. But what he really was doing was shining a light on not just the positives of, this particular way of thinking, but a lot of the negatives. There's a lot of negatives in that book that if you were to sit and read it, and cover to cover, you would recognize that it's not a propaganda piece in any way. There are parts where you're like, oh, that would be cool, or oh, this is neat, or oh, I understand where this is coming from. But for the most part, it really isn't a propaganda piece. It's a think piece of a man that's trying to, talk about what it means to be a citizen, what it means to actually fight for your country, what it means to actually be someone that puts your life on the line, and the rewards that you get thusly. We live in a reality here where people go off and they join the service and they go off and they fight wherever it may be, and then as soon as they're done, they're promised all these things. But we know how well the VA works. We know how well these people are taken care of. We've seen it firsthand, the effect that our system has. And what Heinlein put forward in Starship Troopers and in a few other books was a different way of looking at it. It was a way of saying, if you go off and you do this and you fight for your country and you do it in the right way for the right reasons, then you are a better citizen. You are a good, above the average person, because you're willing to do this and you're willing to learn what it means to actually be engaged in civic duty. Think about today, how much better our country would be if everyone understood how important their voice was. If everybody understood that they had a civic duty to be engaged and understand what was happening about them. If you consider that line of reasoning, or the hope of that, to be propaganda, then fuck, I'm a fascist propagandist as well. But I think that people just misunderstand. I know that some of this language is harsh and some of it is difficult to swallow for people, but I just don't see him that way. I don't believe, based on a lot of things that he said, including today's quote. Now, I thought about this quote the other day, when I made a video, some of you may have seen, basically quoting Trump's speech on July 3rd, where he basically just lies through the whole thing. He just tells fabricated fucking bullshit stories about how communism does this and communism does that and Marxist this and Marxist. It's just stupidity from start to finish. But he literally says that, well, we don't, there's people out there that are going to try to tell you we're on stolen land, and that's not true, which it's absolutely true. Though people trying to tell you that some of our heroes are oppressive, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And it made me think about this quote, and that's why I wanted to share it with you today, because I have the opportunity since it's Heinlein's birthday. So without further ado, Robert A. Heinlein once wrote, when any government, or any church for that matter, undertakes to say to its subjects, this you may not read, this you may not see, this you are forbidden to know, the end result is tyranny and oppression, no matter how holy the motives. Let me read that again. When any government, or any church for that matter, undertakes to say to its subjects, this you may not read, this you may not see, this you are forbidden to know, the end result is tyranny and oppression, no matter how holy the motives. Now, again, I understand that the way that Trump painted it was really just a fabrication. It wasn't him saying, you can't know this. But that's what they're angling for. If you've read anything from Project 2025, then you know that they absolutely are angling towards that. They're trying to take knowledge out of your grasp. They're trying to make it so that you can't read certain things. There's only one side of the political aisle at this point in time that actively is trying to take books out of schools, that is actively trying to censor anything. They're trying to take away the notion that slavery ever existed. They're trying to censor LGBTQIA voices. They're trying to take away women's voices throughout most of the country. This is not me making it up. This is not hyperbole. This isn't me trying to fearmonger. I mean, shit, most people aren't even going to make it to this point in the video. So how could this possibly be effective fearmongering? This is just the truth. And when you think about that, when you think about somebody standing up the day before the 4th of July, the president of the United States standing up before the 4th of July and lying about things that he doesn't need to lie about, right? Like, you don't need to say that. You don't need to, it doesn't actually solve anything or serve any purpose. He's just saying it because that's what his base wants to hear. And that's what he believes, that nobody in their right mind is going to fact check him. At least nobody with a big enough microphone is going to fact check him. And it seems as if he's pretty much right. I mean, you didn't see anything in the mainstream media about calling him out for those things. You don't see anything like a lot of creators on here just let it go. A lot of people didn't say anything. And so if you allow him to just get up there and tell you just absolute fucking falsities, as some part of you doesn't push back, then some part of you is allowing that version of the truth to inhabit you. And we really have to fight against this. We have to stand up and say, no, that is completely and totally wrong. It's not up for opinion whether or not America is built on stolen land. It's not a matter of opinion. That is a matter of historical fact. There's historical record. We know it is true. So for somebody to stand up, especially the president of the United States, again, and say something like that, I mean, it really does reek of, don't read this. Don't look at this. Don't bother to fact check it. Don't ever look at these things. That's what it reminded me of. It was like, don't look at it. Don't look at it, because if you look at it, then you're just going to be wrong. You're just going to be wrong if you look at it, because what I'm saying is truth. What I'm saying is the real thing. And again, I just see the slippery slope that Heinlein basically is talking about here. Tyranny and oppression. That's what follows. It doesn't matter what your motives are. It doesn't matter no matter how good you think you are. If you're out there telling people what they should and shouldn't think, read, see, that's tyranny. And that's how it progresses. And that's how it gets worse. Happy birthday to Robert A. Heinlein, one of the big three. And to the rest of you, take care of yourself, take care of others. I'll talk to you soon.